Hey guys, welcome back to the What's Up podcast, the World of Tanks podcast that keeps you up to date on everything to do with World of Tanks. And today we're joined by fellow World of Tanks player and longtime fellow clan member at one point, AdzTownstrike. Townstrike, hey there, how you doing, dude?
What's up, everyone? I'm doing pretty good.
Good. Townstrike here is Twitch streamer. He streams on twitch.tv/AdzTownstrike. That's AdzTownstrike. Don't forget to go catch him whenever he goes live, guys. Townstrike, tell us a bit about yourself, dude.
I'm a competitive player, I'd say. I've been in many top clans, and I played competitive 7v7, and I guess competitive 15v15 and 5v5.
Nice.
Lots of tournaments, lots of clan wars.
You used to play back in the ESL days, didn't you, at one point?
Yeah, we got a Silver League, and we did pretty well in the weekly Go for What tournaments, which top places were like 4th maybe.
What was the?
It's not bad.
What was the highest? What was the highest level on that? So you were in Silver League. What was was Gold League the highest, or was there something above Gold League?
Gold League was highest.
Gold League was highest. Nice.
We were beating Gold League teams. Like, the worst Gold League teams would be at that sort of level.
So like any further up, like in Silver League or Gold League, then you're starting to hit like almost WGL levels, I dare say.
I mean, WGL is Gold League, so...
right. So you guys almost made
close.
it. Almost made it, man. Almost. Of course, you know, as much as I was a fan of team battles back then, you'll remember over in UL back in the day. As much as I was a fan of team battles, I never had tier 10s, so couldn't really get into it, and I was an absolute pleb at the game.
Just the FV,
the FV215B, right? Those were the days, man. Commanding tier 10 skirmishes with an FV215B. Oh, thank God the Super Conqueror came out. On the topic of the Super Conqueror, today, the topic for this episode is the Super Conqueror's overpowered brother, in many's opinion, FV4201 T95 Chieftain. Townstrike, I believe you have one of these monstrosities, right?
I do indeed.
How do you find it?
I think it's quite a decent tank. You could say that, I guess.
Right?
It's fun to play. It wins. It's good at winning. That's one good thing it's good at.
I think that's something everyone will agree with, right? It's good at making other people lose, really, more than winning.
A bit of a bully tank, you know.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Much like the 279E and the 907 in many people's opinions, and heck, even the EBRs, as you brought up just before we started recording, right? All very good for bullying other opponents.
Yeah,
right?
It's not fun to play against. Like,
no.
Yeah.
On the topic of the Chieftain, how did you get your hands on it? Like, you've been in quite a few clans, right? You've been in TFUK, MVPS, Meme, now in Dream as well. When did you get your hands on it? And Alpha, Alpha as well. How did you get your hands on the Chieftain?
It was after the MVPS campaign. I played with the international team with a Gold League player in Enjoy the Freedom.
Right,
that was pretty fun.
Nice.
And Lithuanians basically.
So that was back when, in 2019, mid 2019 or earlier.
Yeah, that was January 2019. I think.
Oh, January 2019, right? Yeah.
Like right when it came out.
Ooh. So that's when you got it, right? The Chieftain. So there's only been one campaign since. Second campaign's coming up close as of in comparison to recording it. Oh yeah, there has been, hasn't there?
Yeah. Summer and winter.
Right. And then the third campaign is coming up soon, this summer, I believe, right? In a couple of weeks, right?
I think it'll be done by the time this comes out. So.
All right, by the time the podcast episode is released, it will be done.
Everyone will have their Chieftains.
Ooh, maybe I'll join you then. Maybe, who knows?
Hopefully.
Phalanx, the Grand Phalanx for Chieftains. What can you imagine? So how was it? What did it take to get your Chieftain? You did it with MVPS, right? You said?
I was recruited by one of them. He just messaged me basically in game. Do you want to join? So I joined, and
just like that, had a Chieftain, huh?
Pretty much. I mean, I played a lot of games though. Right. To be fair.
Right.
Most nights, 3-4 hours.
Ooh.
Like, it's a lot of work.
How many nights? We talking about like a week, 2 weeks?
It's 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Almost every night for 2 weeks straight, 3 to 4 hours, man. That must be hard to balance with like normal social life, right?
Oh yeah, I had no social life. Right. It was just 2 weeks. So I came back. Yeah, 2 weeks. I came first 2 weeks back at uni.
Right.
So I used to lock myself up every night. And got grinding.
This is while you were studying for university as well, right?
Yeah, but it's start of the term, so
right. All right. So it's still fairly
not too bad.
Fairly calm. First year of uni, right? Back then, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's still relatively relaxed, but that must have been hell of intense
for everyone.
Yeah.
No one likes doing a campaign.
No, I'm certain nobody except myself would be as crazy enough to enjoy a campaign, right?
Yeah.
How many seasons have you played? How many campaigns have you played with the Chieftain now?
Just one.
Just the one?
The last one.
Right.
Yeah, with me. Yeah.
How did you?
It went on.
Well, of course, you know, with that last campaign that just came out, a lot of Smurf clans and a lot of lower level clans did manage to get their hands on the Chieftain just by grinding out the number of battles, right? How do you find it now coming against other beforehand, the Chieftain was like really hard to deal with because only a select few or only like the upper echelon of people had the Chieftain, and now there are people more along the average level of gamers that also have the Chieftain. How do you find it against other Chieftains?
We called them auction chieftains.
Oh, right.
Usually they all get actually terrible.
Right,
like,
right.
Chieftain in the right hands is a beautiful creature, but in the wrong hands, it just becomes a bad or a bad G77.
I mean, on that topic, I was playing a Super Conqueror match back when I was first trying to, you know, get the second mark. When I was sort of working on it, not there yet, but you know, you'd remember I was messaging you and Foraz about this constantly, right?
Yeah.
But I had a Fisherman's Bay match where I came across two Chieftains, right? Both in a platoon,
God.
both yellow W&8, right?
Yeah.
And they're both playing the middle ridge on Fisherman's Bay, and I'm playing Super Conk, and they're both full health. I'm 50%, and I killed both of them for full health, man.
Oh yeah, I mean,
it's like
a tank can't make the driver amazing,
right?
It's just not possible.
So
it helps.
It definitely helps out with the players. Like it makes it a bit easier, but you still have to be competent, right? I was about to say confident, but competent.
Know where to shoot, and how to not sit in front of them, basically.
And really, that's what we're here to discuss tonight. Like, how powerful is the Chieftain in essence? What effect has it had on the game? And will it be, is it all hype, or is it actually like seriously overpowered? Let's get right into it, shall we? So, on the topic of Chieftain in random battles, how often do you find Chieftains in random battles, especially with all these auction Chieftains out and about, right?
And especially at night, you'll find a lot of them.
Like, a lot of them?
Every other game, maybe at night you might find one, but in the day, it's quite
yeah,
rare.
I think that partially comes down to sort of, the players who think they're really good, but they're not. A bit like myself, right? A bit like myself at times, let's be fair. Thinking that we are better than we actually are. They tend to sort of play more of like towards just after midnight because most of the, casual gamers start going offline then to sleep and whatnot, right? And that's when we start coming online, and the actual good players also start coming online. So I'm assuming it's partially to do with that. What's the best way, in your opinion, what's your experience playing Chieftain in random battles against other tier 10 players?
It depends. Just saying full tier 10 games, it can be kind of like washed out. The OP-ness doesn't quite come through,
right?
Because you're still fighting like 1v3s, 1v4s.
Right.
So you can't push.
It's still against valid threats, other tier 10s that can seriously punish you if you make any mistake, right?
Now you got the HE meta. People just fire HE at you,
right?
Like, I don't care, you hold down. You still take damage.
All right,
yeah.
And that's actually annoying. I think that HE meta, so to speak, right, has actually shifted over to also like even in tier 8 where I play most of the time, right, against any other tank. The other day I was playing E75 from the north base of Himmelsdorf, right? Run straight down the 2-line, go into the hull down, right? That watches across the road that behind the courtyard for south base. And there's a T30 and a Type 5 on the other end. Sorry, not Type 5, Type 4. And he wasn't using the HE cannon, right? He's using the normal gun. T30 and Type 4 instantly just switch to HE and just start spamming HE at the turret, man. An E75 TS.
They just don't know how to pen, so they
It's one of those crazy things, huh? So we've briefly talked about you and Chieftain in random battles, right? Like you just get overwhelmed if you do anything too crazy, and it's kind of hard in a full tier 10 match. What's it like when you come across those tier 8s and tier 9s?
It is pure bullying.
Is it?
Basically, your front armor doesn't really work against tier 10s, but against tier 8s and tier 9s, it sort of works sometimes.
Right, for the hull, right?
And then you got your DPM. It's not amazing, but it's still good DPM.
Yeah, it's pretty decent.
You can farm pretty well.
I believe
especially if you get hold down.
It's got, for context, for anyone who hasn't really played the Chieftain or doesn't know much about the Chieftain, it's got slightly more alpha damage than the Super Conk, right? But a longer reload time. I think Super Conk's at 400 and Chieftain's 440 with a reload of about 6 to 6.5 seconds on Super Conk and about 8 seconds, I think, on the Chieftain, right?
Yeah, basically.
Right, more or less.
It's got less DPM than Super Conk, but
right.
You get better turret.
But the armor and the gun, like the armor of the turret, definitely helps with positioning a lot more than the Super Conqueror and the lower profile. I think a lot of people miss that on the Chieftain. The fact that not only does it have a great turret, it also has great gun depression, much like the Super Conqueror.
Yeah, it's low-key pretty sneaky.
But you also have a really like low profile tank, meaning you can like get real close to those ridge lines and hide that cupola, which is ever so thin. It's like wafer thin, that cupola, right? Like Trying
You
to
know how to
snipe that.
Capola, you'll do well. You'll do well.
How would you deal with Chieftains if you came across them in a tier 8, tier 9, or tier 10, you know? You're not a greatest player. How would you deal with them besides spamming HE?
So tier 8 into 9, I would avoid. I'd be like,
right, just
no,
turn around and
to be
leave.
fair,
Right?
I would do that as Super Conqueror. I'd do that at most tier 10s.
Right.
I'd avoid them, I wouldn't take the 1v1, and I might wait for the rest of the team to push over. And
right,
then, you know,
get other people to help you out.
Since you push on a Chieftain, it's dead. It's not like
Yeah.
a 279 or something. You can't really survive.
Right, because the hull armor doesn't hold up. So realistically, it's about being sneaky against these Chieftains and letting everyone else take the firepower from the Chieftains.
Realistically, you play like a and you let everyone else take all the damage.
Right, fair enough. That works. What if you're in a tier 10 though? How do you deal with a Chieftain then?
Okay, if you've got good aim, go for that Capola snipe or snap. Mostly snap, because it never really show much of it.
Right.
But it can work. Like 1 in 5 maybe, even if you're not very accurate. It'll hit. And a Chieftain who gets hit in the Capola is going to start crying. He's like, why is it not working?
He's gonna automatically start writing that. He's gonna start writing that message on a Word document, and he'll copy and paste it over as soon as battle ends, right? Aimbot, how dare you? Reported to WG for hacking. You Capola sniped my Chieftain. How dare you? Right? Like, probably an auction Chieftain, right? Probably an auction Chieftain.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, a good player would hide it, but
yeah,
bad players don't hide it. And you can get meme pens on the turret,
right?
And you can pen between the turret and the hull. It's a sort of flat bit. You can pen that sometimes with high pen guns.
Oh, right.
You know,
that thin band where the turret ring is, and it's a bit more flat, right?
Oh, yeah.
I'm assuming heat can sort of punch through on the lower parts of the turret, I assume, from like other tier 10s, right?
A Sidescaping Chieftain, you can get, if you've got 340 heat, you can shoot his hull reasonably well. When he can just hit you, you can pen him as well.
Right.
Side scraping. And if you're over side scrapes, you can shoot him in the rear in your pen pretty nicely.
Fair enough.
You need to have experience. Like, it's the way playing against Chieftains every day in advances helps, because
right, you start learning all the ins and outs of the tank, how to pen it, what angles sort of work. Same thing with Defender, really. A lot of my clan members don't have a lot of experience dealing with Defenders, because of course when I shut the clan down originally back in 2019, I lost a lot of my higher level players, or average level players, and now I'm stuck with a couple more sub-average players, so they don't know how to deal with the Defender. And the only thing I can really say to them is, look, you can go into a training room against a Defender and I can show you all the angles and all the places you can hit it and all the places you can pen it, but that's like 50% of the story, right? It comes down to each individual situation, and the best way to learn it is just fight them over and over and over. Learn all the ins and outs of the tank, where you can pen it, where you can't pen it. Heck, if you can get your hands on one, play it so you learn, or watch replays of people playing it so you learn, where they get penned and, when people can sneak shots in and whatnot, right?
Or, just what do I do? I just shoot the top.
The top?
Easy pens.
Yeah, on the Defender, right? Yeah. So with a Chieftain, is it really that hard to take out in a tier 10, or is it fairly straightforward as long as you sort of know where to aim?
I mean, it depends on the player. If you can get him in unfavorable positions, like on the flat, most tanks, they have a good go at Chieftain. Chieftain can't stand too much one-on-one action.
Right.
If you let him face hug you and you don't know what you're doing, that can be an issue. Or
right.
If you let him sit hold down.
I think one of the biggest things I notice is with the higher profile tier 10s, the ones that have decent gun depression are slightly taller than Chieftains. You can just shoot down into the hull half the time, really.
Oh yeah.
Or down into the turret even sometimes, like in the taller heavies. Like, I'm assuming a mouse might actually be able to get away with it if a Chieftain tries to face hug.
Oh,
probably doesn't.
Mouse can face like anything.
Right. Yeah.
So chill.
But yeah, so I guess best thing to do if you're tier 8 or if you're tier 9, avoid the Chieftain, wait for backup, and then just swarm him. There's not much you can do about it. I mean,
that's just the best way generally to do with any tank.
Right.
Wait for backup.
Right. If you're struggling, just wait for backup and swarm it.
Team
or catch
play
in crossfire.
is the dream play,
Yeah, team play.
That's how you win.
Moving on from random battles, though, clan battles, Chieftain. How does it feel playing a Chieftain in clan battles, especially against other people who don't have the Chieftain?
Oh,
how's it?
That's when it gets fun.
It must be
when they're playing Super Conquerors and 5As and 277s.
It must be like absolute, like just seal clubbing right there, right?
I mean, yeah, just as fast. You get the hold down, and they just die. They just whimper away.
Like, you got the strength of the 5A and the 277, where you got the mobility. You've also got the strength of the Super Conk in terms of DPM rate of fire, sort of penetration, good gun handling, good turret as well, right?
Exactly.
So it's sort of a best of both worlds, no compromise made either, really.
Although you could say I could do that in most tanks if I was playing against yellow players.
I think if you're a competent player, so what you're saying is it kind of comes down to the player. Like, a good player can make any tank work, but having a Chieftain and being a good player makes it even more easier, right?
Yeah, you can be lazy. You can just sit and hold down.
Right. How's it against other Chieftains in clan battles, though?
Oh, not fun at all. Basically, it just comes down to who gets lucky with the pens, or whose commander can make the better calls. You can't really outplay a chieftain.
That's where
that's
where the RNG starts to kick in, and also
exactly
the tactics start to kick in a bit more, right? Like the tactics only take you so far, especially here at lower levels, right? The tactics will only take you so far. A great tactic won't guarantee you the win if your players are marginally worse than the opponents, right? Like if by a large margin, if you're like my 1k elo clan against a 1.3k elo clan, right? The tactic won't make a huge difference because we'll just get outplayed on the individual stuff, right? Like we saw it yesterday in the Clan Wars replay that I showed you. My heavies sort of made a bit of a mistake, you know.
Yeah, they made some mistakes.
Lost the province because of it. Not too happy about it, but that comes down to individual play, to be honest, right? Tactic could have been better, yes, but there's not much it could have done at that point. So I guess Chieftain versus Chieftain in Clan Wars is sort of tactic starts to make a bit more a bit more influence on everything, right?
Like I played with I think it's now On God, whatever it is.
Right.
We had a pretty meh commander, and even though we had chieftains, we're still struggling. We couldn't win anything basically.
Right. Like, I mean, even here at the 1k elo, right? 1.1k, sub 1.1k, so 1k to 1.1k elo clans, right? You'll still see some chieftain players. They might be legionnaires, they might be clan members who have dropped into friends clans, whatever else. Heck, Martin got his hands on a chieftain, man. You'll find that a lot of the times these chieftain players, especially the auction chieftains, right? Especially the auction chieftains. Just because they have 1 or 2 chieftains, they think it'll be an easy win for their team. They don't realize that, you know, 1 chieftain doesn't make a huge difference.
Even 10 chieftains can get easily outplayed by better players or better tactics.
I think, like, you know, if we came across a 5 chieftain team in tier 10 skirmishes, right? 5 chieftains, 5 907, something insane like that, right? I think my clan would get steamrolled, right? I think we just would, right? Especially considering we don't have the most ideal tanks, and also even if it was against ourselves, right? If it was Ixta versus Ixta, where one Ixta was in Super Conk, the other was in Chieftain, I think the Chieftain Ixta would probably win. But now if we're talking about, you know, you in Super Conk, me in Chieftain, then I think you've got the upper hand there, right? Like that's the sort of, it really does come down to the player, right? A lot of the times.
Player, tactics, positions, maps. It's an RNG game. You can't say, you know,
like everything has a limit for how much it affects the game by, right? Chieftain's definitely powerful, and we have seen some crazy stuff in Clan Wars and skirmishes since the introduction of the Chieftain. How has it affected the meta in your opinion?
Ooh, it's been a big shift. Basically, the olden days, you'd have your fast heavies and you'd have your, you know, slow hold down heavies, like, and then you had super slow heavies, of course. Right. But mostly slow heavies, like Super Conqueror, that goes hold down. Right. And maybe it's kind of Wagen or something. And then your WZ, your 260 or 277, like with fast ones. And now Chieftain can take either on.
Right, you can do both, which means you now have more slots to experiment with, or more flexibility for other tanks as well, right?
Like suddenly, Super Conquerors can rotate anywhere they want. Like
they can play like a 277, they can play like a Super Conqueror. You don't need to have 5 of each, right? Just take 10 of 10 of Chieftain, right? What sort of effect has it had on the meta? Like, how have the tactics changed since the Chieftain came in? My personal experience, I've seen that, you know, especially at tier 10, everything is a lot more fast-paced. Beforehand, as you said, right? Now, I mean, this is going back way back when, right? Before the IS, let's take a look at it from before the IS-7 got its speed buff. So this is a while back, right? The IS-7 was, you know, fairly mobile, but then the 5A comes out, right? 5A comes out, crap ton of mobility. Everyone shifts from IS-7 to 5A, right? Me personally, I'm not a fan of the 5A. I don't like the gun handling on it, right? 5A comes out, replaces IS-7 in meta, right? There's a meta change where things start being more mobile. At least in my opinion, right? Because you got faster heavy. Still got a couple of your super conks around to play the hull down, a couple of the Kranvagans around to play hull downs. Heck, sometimes you'll see people at low level who don't have super conk yet taking E5s even. Not the best of options, but it was still valid back then.
E5 was still, decent.
The 5A then becomes redundant because the 277 comes out.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Because the 277, if I remember correctly, goes faster than the 5A. The gun handling is, in my opinion, from what I've seen, a bit better, and the armor also holds up a bit more as well.
Yeah, but less DPM.
But I don't think it's really replaced the 5A so much. I think it's more replaced the 430U a tiny bit.
Oh yeah.
Because
I mean, if you can talk about metas, you can talk about like T68 meta and mouse meta.
Right.
And lots of
back
metas.
then,
they're pretty.
So I think
special.
I think what we've seen over the years is things have gone from being a more static and slow sort of long engagement and a long brawl, where crossfires meant a lot more at one point, where you'd have like a lot of hit points on the team because you'd have a lot of heavily armored heavies moving fairly slowly, or, you know, playing hull down, playing very passive. It would be a lot longer for the trades to finish. But now what you see, at least in my opinion, especially at the lower levels, right, or the average levels, is a lot faster pace. And this was partially because of the Chieftain arriving. because it was hella mobile, right? But also from the 277, the 5A, the 430U being introduced, right? And even the 279E and the 907, right? And I mean, they've been around for a while, and the 260. But with the entire sort of mobility of tanks, and even, heck, you brought it up earlier, the EBRs, right?
Yeah.
With all this more, like, it looks like tier 10 clan wars and advances and skirmishes are taking a route from being what used to be very slow or very long engagements, not necessarily slow gameplay, but slow engagements, which took a lot of time to finish.
Oh yeah, and now it's
a lot quicker, right? And there's a lot more rotations being made. What are your thoughts?
That's the main difference. Rotations are everything now.
Right.
You know, I'll be driving back and forth and back and forth. Because Chieftain, you can leave one Chieftain somewhere and it'll hold it really well.
Right.
People won't push it.
Right.
And you can push with them as well. So yeah, and also EBR is like a huge difference.
Yeah, because now it frees up.
On the map.
Yeah. You don't need two lights now. You can just go with the one if you really wanted to. Or you wouldn't, because it can cover both flanks very quickly. I think we're slowly seeing this with all the tanks, this slow change of being a slow-paced, long brawl to being a lot faster.
It's more dynamic. It's not more, advanced.
Right.
Like, rather than just mouses firing each other or...
as opposed to 5 mouses against 5 mouses in the center of Ruinberg with 50 Bs on the side and a couple of IS7s pushing the town or whatever, or E3s. Now it's a lot more mobility, a lot more flanking each other, a lot more aggressive crossfires and aggressive positioning.
EBR change. I mean, arguably the biggest meta shift has been the EBR. EBR has been basically, it's harder to camp, harder to be sneaky. You can't really do anything about it
because they spot everything, right?
Like, compare a Batchat. Batchat used to be a spotting tank, right? And now you got an EBR. It's just basically twice as fast.
Heck, I don't have any EBRs in my clan really, right? I have a couple now, but I don't have many. So I used to still use the Batchat, and it works. But life definitely becomes easier when you have the EBR.
Oh, definitely.
Because it just opens up more possibilities, and you can get all those spots a lot earlier. So what we've seen, in my opinion, and you can weigh your opinion in on this, is slowly over the years, the past 3-4 years, we've seen a meta shift of things becoming a lot faster and a lot more aggressive, where you have tanks that can now play multiple roles. So with the Chieftain, specifically speaking, right, you now can get rid of your Kranvagans and your Super Conks for the hull down. You can also get rid of a couple of your 277s or 430Us for the mobility.
Exactly.
Right? And it allows just for more flexibility and more rotations. And EBRs help even further with boosting this shift, right, in the meta and accelerating it.
You can also say, like, back in the old days, like, you have full Batchat teams, you have full 140 teams. I mean, it's been quicker metas. There's been,
right.
But yeah,
but now it allows
more
more variety, so to speak. Right?
Oh yeah.
Because you have more hit points and whatnot, right?
You can take also, like, you see lots of Leopards being played now, lots of Leos.
The Leopard and STB. If you're on mobile hull downs, you got the Chieftain, STB to some extent. Like you guys, when we were doing the 7 vs 7 back in my clan and you jumped in, you guys used STBs on the hill, man. That was a first for me.
Oh yeah. They're quicker than the 9/7s.
Yeah, and it, like, in events where, like, Chieftain's banned, right, in like community events and whatnot where reward vehicles are banned, STB fills in perfectly for the Chieftain sometimes, if you're looking for mobile hull downs, right? But
it is pretty good.
On that topic of STB filling in for Chieftain, right, when you need something with a bit more mobility but non-reward, what's the best non-reward vehicle to replace the Chieftain in your opinion?
That's a tricky one. I mean, a Super Conqueror, it can do the similar sort of thing. You just can't rotate as well.
Right.
But you can use it as a Chieftain.
I feel like the rotation of the Chieftain, though, is what makes it even more powerful, not just the turret armor, really. The fact that it has
5.8. 5.8 has somewhat of a turret, but it's not.
The cupolas are a bit of a problem, though, right?
Yeah.
And the gun handling, I'm not sure about the gun handling. How do you find the gun handling on the 5A?
It's not the nicest, but it works. As long as you don't have to be sniping Chieftain cupolas.
Right.
You're good.
Right.
But that's probably what you can have to spend most of the time doing. So
what is hands down tier 10 the best replacement for Chieftain, in your opinion? If you're looking for the mix between turret armor, mobility, being able to play hull down, gun handling, what would you say the best option is?
I mean, a 260.
260?
260 is in meta right now. It's fast. Right. Stupidly fast.
Right.
And
how fast does it go?
It's got a good turret. I think, I don't know.
55?
Close to 60.
Ooh.
It is like a 9/7 sort of speed, but it's sluggish. But
I think with the Chieftain, the big thing about the Chieftain compared to like IS7, 277, right? It's not just the speed, but also the acceleration, the power to weight of it, right?
Oh yeah.
Because you can climb hills stupid fast in that, right? I think that's partially what makes it feel so overpowered, because it can, like, going back to the meta shift, EBRs can constantly spot all your rotations, which means your rotations now have to be even quicker if you want them to work. Or you need to make a rotation and you need to bluff it and turn around and go the other way again, right, to catch the enemy off guard. The only tanks that can really, in terms of heavies, the only tanks that can really pull that off, there's probably about three or four really. 260, Chieftain, 277 5A, right? Couple of others here and there, like 50B maybe, but you know, that's not really what we're talking about here, are we? We're talking about things that can brawl. Those are probably like four of the best options there if we're looking at, you know, a mix between reward and non-reward vehicles. So would you say, if you're looking for a heavy with a bit of mobility, non-reward vehicle, right? So excluding 260, 2790 Chieftain, right? Best replacement for Chieftain, if you're looking for a heavy, would probably be 277 5A.
Again, depends on the role you want it to play.
Right. If we're talking mobility. If we're talking mobility,
277 5A.
277 5A. And if we're talking hull down, then of course Super Conk, right?
Arguably a Kranvagen would do the job.
Ooh.
Maybe even better, to be honest.
Why is that?
I don't like it that much. It's slow.
What are your thoughts on Kranvagen compared to Super Conk?
It's now been buffed. It's got nice DPM. It's got nice. I'm a bit weak. And I think it gets arty pretty badly.
But I mean, you know, Super Conk hull's nothing to be proud of either, to be honest, right? Like,
I mean, it works.
Yeah, at times.
Yeah.
But where do you see where do you see the most chiefs? What sort of maps is it where you see the most chieftains? I want to get into sort of the idea of what makes chieftains so useful on the global map or in skirmishes and advances. Like, where do they thrive? What sort of positions do they love, and on what maps? What do you think? If you have to be real quick about it.
We never take too many chieftains. If you take too many chieftains, you know, you're losing out on FNOs. You're losing out on
DPM,
holding real holding power, like E3 sort of beast and 279 beast mode. You know.
Right.
But actually, some city maps like Ruinberg. You don't lost 260, you don't lost Chieftains. Ensk, Dream, we played a lot of Chieftains.
Right.
Like 10 maybe, or something like that.
Ooh, that's a hefty amount, right?
Sand River, you have a lot of nice sevens, but you have some cheese.
Right.
Just to hold. Because Chief's, I think, good at. Chief can survive plenty of fight hits. It can hold a position reasonably well. If not as good as some tanks, but
why is it that it can survive so many artillery hits? Is it because of just how large the turret is compared to the hull?
I mean, it's kind of quick, it's kind of sneaky.
Right.
You can spot reasonably well because you can pop over.
Right.
But yeah.
Fair enough.
It does seem, and you can always rotate. You can do damage as well.
Right.
Have an R7 which just can't do damage really.
In your opinion, right? You've played a couple of tier 8 skirmishes here and there, I assume, recently, right?
Yeah.
In terms of Chieftain and all the meta change going on at tier 10, has it affected the tier 8 meta in any way? What do you think? Have the tactics been changing? Like, clans that want to be like tier 10 clans, but they're not quite there, so they're sort of like getting used to it at tier 8 first, whatever else. Has it affected the tactics in tier 8?
I mean, I wouldn't say so. I think tactics tier 8 have been pretty stale. Have been Brigado, maybe some Bresks, maybe some Renegades, maybe some defenders.
Not so much in lineups, but more of like the positioning of these tanks. Like, me personally, like, of course I took sort of a half a year break in between, right, in 2019. But before, when I used to like command back for the What Uni community, when I first started up the Grand Phalanx back in, you know, late 2018, early 2019, right, it was sort of a lot more slower engagements, right? It was a lot more stationary, especially at like 1.1k elo. It was slower, it was stationary. Heck, we got up into top 200 for tier 8 skirmishes, and we held that position for several months, right, with orange and yellow players. I take a half a year break, I come back, and now things are a lot more mobile, things are a lot more aggressive. It might not so like at the lower levels, like top 500 as opposed to top 200. It's not a lot of rotation, but it's a lot more fast movement, right? Like taking flanks very aggressively, very quickly. And I feel like that's something the Chieftain can do very quickly as well, taking flanks very quickly at tier 10. What are your thoughts on that?
You can't really, it's really hard to compare, but I think people are realizing aggression just wins because you either win quick or you die quick and you get into the next game.
Right.
People are learning, you know, there's no point camping at the back for 15 minutes.
You can make more effective use out of your time and get more resource points out of playing quicker matches, right? And that might be where it comes from.
You got the Brigado. It's a medium tank that can hold its own against a heavy tank. You got EBR hold its own against most
Lynx
tanks.
Even, which can run rings around defenders.
And Defender is pretty quick.
Yeah.
Is it faster than IS3?
No. Defender goes 35, IS3 goes 38, and it's about power to weight difference of 1 between the two.
I think it's pretty fast.
Yeah. Me personally, I'm a fan of the IS3 for that sole basis, right? Clan members are like, why the heck do you love the IS3 over the Defender? Defender is much better, and I think that's because they rely on their armor too much, and they don't actually know how to use the armor of the IS3.
IS3 can be godlike.
Oh, I love my IS3, right? Like, I love my IS3. You and 4as were watching when I free marked mine, right? I loved my IS3, right?
Yeah.
Good stream times, right?
It is nice.
I love my IS3. I know how to use the armor on it, right? Most people at my level right, in skirmishes don't. And that's why they prefer the Defender. It's just so much more easier to play. You don't have to focus as much on...
You need to know how to play,
right.
to play tanks like that. Even that, you give them a Chieftain,
I mean,
they struggle.
Defender only works, in my opinion, if you can bring the reload down to 11 seconds. You can bring the reload down with food, consumables, bounty equipment, bond equipment. If you can bring the reload down so that it meets the IS3 reload, then I think you can play it. Because you get the extra alpha, you beat it on DPM, and you beat it on armor. Then it works, right? And it makes up for the lack of mobility. IS3's got better traverse speed, marginally better mobility. Just ever so slightly. But sometimes I feel like that makes a huge difference. But staying on topic, right? Let's say, you know, you get inspired by all the chieftain tactics that are going on at top level. Tier 8. You get inspired by all these chieftains. And you want to sort of emulate something similar, right? Like, there's positions that, you know, chieftains can make work better than any other tanks at tier 10, correct?
Definitely. Right. I can think of many.
Any examples you can think of on the spot right now?
To get steps. Was it right on the map?
Right side of the map in the sort of like
hold-down
position
at the back, like not really the back, but you know, there's a hill. With the trees on. Like that, Chieftain, perfect. You couldn't put anything else there.
Right.
Really.
Anything else there's just peaking too high to get the gun depression, or the turret's just not strong enough, right?
And also at the back on the left.
On the left side,
behind the little rise, the little mound.
Is there anything at tier 8 that you think could make use of these similar positions? Me personally, you know what my two answers are going to be, right? I've got two tanks, relatively new. One came out in a marathon recently. One came out in the Christmas loot boxes. E75 TS and Renegade. That's my opinion, hands down. They have the mobility, they have the gun handling, they have the turret armor, more or less, right? What do you think?
I'm going to throw out a mention to my boy.
God.
T26 E5P.
Oh, the Patriot?
Beautiful tank.
You love your Patriot,
it's
man.
Got no turret armor though. You turn that turret a millimeter and you're just dead.
Yeah.
That's the issue.
I think the cheeks are the problem with the Patriot for me. If you turn your turret even slightly, people can start penning the cheeks.
Yeah. I mean, that could work, but it's a bit slower than Renegade and E75 TS.
Heck, me and Lumberjack, right? We did a comparison between the E75 TS and the Renegade in terms of speed on hard terrain. E75 TS leaves the Renegade in the dust.
Really?
Yeah.
I wouldn't think that, but
making a runner, you know that Himmelsdorf hull down that we were talking about earlier, right? Before we started recording. The, what is it, G5 position, I think, right? Yeah. We were trying to see which tank at tier 8 could get there for tier 8 clan wars, right? E75 or Renegade, what would be easier? Now, of course, Renegade's smaller, so it's easier to play once you get there, but it's not quick enough. The Renegade gets there 5 seconds after the E75 TS. 5 whole seconds, dude.
That's make a difference. That's one shot in safety.
That's insane. I mean, the other day I saw VK168s, right? The Malbrecker, basically. They caught the E75 before he got there, but that's only because he got spotted going there, right? He didn't
I'm surprised
take the right
E75
route.
is not more OP. I think people are hyped with the Renegade, but E75 is a bit better.
I mean, I think the big difference between the E75 and the Renegade is the E75 is probably a bit easier to play because all you have to do is wiggle the turret when you're hull down, and it becomes almost impossible to penetrate unless you time your shots for the little eyeballs on the side of the tanks, right? So, I mean, do you think there's anything else that come close? So, Patriot, E75 TS, Renegade. But I think for the Renegade, you have to be very skilled to make the cupola, like, hidden.
Oh, yeah.
The Patriot
doesn't... peek out. You don't get enough. The tier 8's aim slower than tier 10.
Right,
so peek out.
I think the big difference is, right? E75 TS, if you're not good at playing the Renegade. And if you want to play Patriot instead of Renegade or E75 TS, it's got to be more passive in terms of rotations. Like, you can't make the same rotations as quickly as you could with a Chieftain. What are your thoughts?
I mean, you can try.
Yeah.
It's like, you can compare it to another hold down tank like T32.
Right.
You can play that because it's just too slow.
It's just too slow. The gun's terrible as well, let's be honest now, unless you're firing full gold. Penetration. I think that's the biggest problem with the T32 is the penetration values have always been a pain.
Dreadful.
I free marked that thing a while ago in like 120 battles, I think it was. The only reason I didn't do it in 100 was because the penetration of that gun was terrible and I didn't want to fire full gold. Like,
it is pretty disgraceful how they just left it to die. It used to be so good.
Yeah, it used to be wonderful before the Patriot came out. Before the Patriot came out, it was the only thing that could contend against T34. You put a hull down T34 on one end of the map with that gun. Oh, right? And the only thing that could play a hull down as strong as a T34, besides a Carnarvon when the Carnarvon got its buffs, right, would be T32. Yeah, the Carnarvon was another one.
It's a bit slow though.
It's too slow and it doesn't have the alpha, I don't think, the Carnarvon.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got the rate of fire, but it can't shut tanks down as quickly. Like, if there's a tank that's 400 hit points or 350 hit points, Renegade or E75 TS or Patriot can possibly shut it down in 1 or 2 shots. Sorry, one shot, like for E75 TS and Renegade, right? 300 hit points. But Carnarvon needs to put that second shot in almost all the time.
The same like Renegade just makes it a pretty good tank.
It's a good balance between mobility, armor, and DPI.
I spent yesterday. The gun works so well.
right?
And
what was that on the highway map, right? Like,
yeah,
it's just wonderful, the gun handling on that.
It was sniping people in the top medium position. And
yeah, moving on, let's talk about why people find the Chieftain so overpowered. Is it as overwhelming as people think?
Big bag of worms, isn't it? People all about height culture, and they're all about this is the height tank. It's so OP. It's so broken. You're cheating by playing it. I mean, it's not that good.
I think it really comes down to, you know, the nerves that people get a lot of the time when they come across the Chieftains. They just panic. The other day, right, I was platooning with a couple of players from Reborn, right? What ends up happening is there's like a platoon of Chieftains on the enemy team. Guess what we get in return?
Super Conquerors, or?
Not even super conks, man. We get a platoon of E5s.
Oh, wow.
3 E5s against 3 Chieftains in 3-5-7 matchmaking. You tell me who's going to win.
That's going to be a tricky fight, isn't it? That's a tricky fight.
I think the biggest problem is, like, everyone just goes, oh, Chieftains, man, or 279Es, man, or 260s, man, reward vehicles. These goddamn top players with their overpowered tanks, and they just give up instantly. I think a lot of it's mentality. I don't think they're as powerful as people think.
The thing is, they either give up, or they run away, or they just YOLO you. That's the worst part. They just go and go. And like, as soon as one goes, all like lemmings, aren't they? So you have 5 people just YOLOing into you. Actually, some bad players see a Chieftain in a slightly bad position. Like, I'll be slightly overexposed.
Right.
They just pile in like hungry dogs, waiting.
They just want to kill you, man. They're just like that overpowered thing. We got to destroy him, right?
Yes, you can't play Chieftain like how I want to play Chieftain like really aggressive. You just can't. You will get bullied.
No.
And Artie will focus you instead.
Right. Unless it's like a tactic where you've got clan wars and you can sort of like, you've got people supporting you if they push you and it's sort of bait, then maybe, right? Like if it's like 3 Chieftains pushing in, right, to bait the enemy into pushing, and you got like 7 tanks ready to fire on that location, then it's a different story, right? Like, can you imagine just baiting a 1k elo clan with 3 Chieftains, right? They full push the Chieftains, next thing you know, there's triple FV405s waiting at the back. Over exaggeration, of course, but something like where you're just using them as bait.
People do tend to be over aggressive on them.
Right.
Definitely. Which is much their detriment. That's probably why they lose so much, because
I think it comes down to what you were saying earlier, right? Either you just leave them and wait until you get the crossfire, you get the support, or you just sort of like swarm them and take them out instantly and move on, right? That's got to be the way to do it.
When you're playing against Chieftain, you know, you're playing opposite him, you won't really engage him a bit. You'll be farming his mates.
Right.
And then suddenly
you leave him with no support.
Realize, oh, where my ally's gone? Wait, he's done 6k damage while I've been farming. And no, you're probably not. I'll be like in like a 260 or something. I'm doing 3k, but Chieftain will be doing like 6k because he's in a better tank and he can just hold down. So
fair enough.
That's the worst part, because you can't really ignore a Chieftain too much because
you'll rip you to shreds. Yeah,
actually, if your team's not very good.
But like, if you're gonna ignore it, you gotta ignore it and then put yourself in a position where he can't do anything. About you ignoring him. You can't let him get your attention. You don't give the Chieftain a reason to become your priority, so to speak, right? Like, you don't want to make it easy for him to get your attention. That's what it is. You got to play in positions where he can't do anything unless he leaves his strong position and exposes his hull, exposes the side of his turret to everyone else, you know? That's the way you got to deal with it.
I mean, sometimes I do find myself, you know, just bullying a Chieftain just for the sake of it, because I don't play on my own account, so, you know, a bit of fun. And I just counter him really, really hard. Right. Watch them suffer, you know. When I shoot the Capola repeatedly.
On the point of Chieftain and the sort of enigma it's accumulated, I think all these auction Chieftains that we've talked about, I think they've sort of like opened up the average player's eyes a bit, right? To show that it's not actually an overpowered tank that makes everyone a World of Tanks god, right? It's not. It's a strong tank in the right hands, but if you're exceptionally bad or you don't know how to play it and you put it in the wrong place, you will get punished. And I think that goes with anything, almost anything. There's very few exceptions, and I think everyone on the lower end of the W8 spectrum and the skill level spectrum will shout out 279E is absolutely insane, you know? You can do whatever you want and you're fine.
I played 279 quite a lot and I don't like it at all.
As long as you know how to deal with these tanks, I think you can deal with them appropriately. But you need to know where the weak spots on these tanks are when they are at their strongest position, so to speak, right?
Exactly. You just need to play against them and just take the risky shots. Even if it's going to miss. You'll scare Chieftain by whiffing his Capola rather than just wasting it, shooting it at someone else, or whiffing it into his magnet.
Yeah. Do you think, the Chieftain will ever get nerfed?
I don't see it happening, but I can see it being stealth nerfs. Like, they might nerf
I think it'll be like a very minor nerf if they ever do it, like terrain resistance, as you said, or
it'll be something small. But you don't need to nerf it too hard. If you nerf it too hard, it just becomes a crap tank.
Right, and then there's no point in it being a reward vehicle. Like, reward vehicles should be a reward, right?
Yeah, they want people to play Clan Wars campaign, not just.
It gives people a reason to play the campaign.
Yeah.
on that point, right, because there's a lot of people out there who want Chieftain, but they're not interested in playing clans and whatever else, or they're not good enough, or their clan's not good enough. Do you think World of Tanks will ever put the Chieftain on the Bond store?
I don't think they will. It's just too good. It's too good of a reward.
I think the only time that'll ever happen is like 3 years down the line when there's another free. Like right now, what do we have? We have the 907. We have the Chieftain. What else is there for reward vehicles? That's
VK,
really powerful.
M60,
the VK,
T95E6.
Right, T95E6, and then there's that other one that's coming out this upcoming campaign.
Yeah, 780, which is kind of bad.
780, is it bad?
Not the best. It's not the best.
I think give it a couple more years, right, where there's like 7 reward vehicles or 8 reward vehicles in total that are, substantially good, then I think maybe then they'll put it on the store.
They haven't released 907 yet, so
I don't know, man.
I mean, it depends what the next one's gonna be like. If the next one has like a 907, I can see it having 907.
I think 907 will go on Bond store before the Chieftain does, on the sole basis that the 907 has been around for longer.
I mean, if you put 907 in the one shot, that'd be pretty useful. Because if you've got 907, you can get a top clan pretty easily. Because you always need 907 drivers.
Right.
And it's pretty easy to play.
Moving forwards, though, where's the balance, though, between these really powerful tanks and something that's just broken or unplayable?
I mean, it's really, really fine. Like, you put a Chieftain with a super conquer DPM,
right?
It'll be stupid OP.
Yeah, and it would just be game breaking, right? Like,
yeah, it'd be ridiculous. Because actually, if you gave a Chieftain a good gun, like Chieftain gun is pretty meh. It's not the best. So if you gave it a good gun, it'll be stupid OP.
Honestly,
it'll be untouchable.
Honestly, I think if World of Tanks ever create anything similar again and like make it available to a larger audience, right? Either as ranked battle, frontline, clan wars, or even premium star reward vehicle of any sort, right?
Yeah.
I don't think it would be a good idea because, as I was saying to you beforehand, it kind of takes away the achievement of having a Chieftain or having a 907, right? Like, it's exactly as I said before we recorded, right? It's a bit like like this, what's the word? It just takes away the accomplishment, doesn't it? Like, it's like, I put all that effort in? So I think it would be a bad idea. It keeps that competitive player base around. It gives them a reason to continue being competitive.
Well, I don't know reason to play. I wouldn't have played the advances or the campaigns if it wasn't for the Chieftains.
Those are right, exactly.
PKs and etc. And they're good. I wouldn't get the M60. I wouldn't get the 121B, even if they weren't in one shot, because they're just bad tanks. So
I mean, honestly, just finishing up here, the Chieftain, man, it's definitely had its effect. I don't think it was the only thing that affected the meta changes and whatnot, and the tactic changes and whatnot that we've seen over the past 2-3 years. Of course, 279E, 260, 907, EBR. I mean, heck, even the buffs. Didn't the E3 receive a buff a while ago, like ages ago, like a year or two ago? The 277 coming out, the IS7 getting a speed buff, the 5A coming out. All these things that have happened over the past 4 or 5 years, right? I think this is all sort of generally made an effect on the game, right?
But Chieftain has had a decent effect.
Yeah, it's definitely played its part in changing everything. I don't think it was the only thing. I don't think it's stupid overpowered, right? Same as the 279E. A lot of people, especially at my level, right, will say the 279E is overpowered, like stupid overpowered. All I do is I ask one of my fellow friends to come into a training room with me. I get someone else with a 279E to come in, and I'll show them all the weak spots. And then next thing you know, they message me a week later saying, "Oh, I came across a 279E, I killed him." And then he sent me a love letter at the end of the match. I think if you know how to deal with the tanks, they're not actually as overpowered as people think they are. We'll call it an end there, I think. The Chieftain, definitely silly. Like, it's really powerful. Let's give it the credit it deserves. It's a very powerful tank, but you need to be competent while using it. I'd say the closest tier 8 replication of a Chieftain would probably be Renegade E75TS Patriot, as we discussed, purely because mobility, gun handling, DPM, armor, it sort of meets the general criteria of, realistically, what it is a slightly heavier version of a main battle tank, isn't it? That's what we're looking at now.
Yeah, well, it's main battle tank. It's a tank.
It really is.
Anything.
Yeah.
And
I think this is what was so powerful about the T54, for example, T54 lightweight when it was tier 8, right? It used to be really powerful back when that was
perfect,
right? Because it could play the light tank role, it could play the medium tank role. If that was still at tier 8 right now, the projector would actually have a contender that challenged its position as top tank, right? For mobility. Chieftain's definitely a wonderful tank. I'd love to get my hands on it one day. Hopefully the upcoming seasons. I'll get my hand on one. Then I'll truly see, is it all hype or, is it great? Everyone who's watching, once again, you can find Townstrike at Twitch, twitch.tv/AdzTownstrike. Don't forget to go.
Amazing takes.
You'll see him play as Chieftain there sometimes as well. If you have any questions for him, you can always catch him there. If you have any questions for me, you can find me on Twitch at twitch.tv/Ixta101. Don't forget to check out the podcast website at ixta101.wixsite.com/what's up. Once again, this is episode 1 of the What's Up podcast. Stay tuned for the next episode, guys. Take care. Have a nice day, everyone. Until next time.